What if one $50 idea could rewrite the future of sport, business, and culture? Before Nike became a global icon, it was a scrappy startup born in the trunk of a Plymouth Valiant. And at the center stood one man, Phil Knight, a shy accountant from Oregon with an obsession not just for running shoes, but for possibility itself. This is the untold story of how Phil Knight turned $50 into Nike and the brand strategy that quietly transformed customers into lifelong believers. In 1962, fresh out of Stanford Graduate School of Business, 24-year-old Phil Knight wrote a research paper on an unlikely topic. Can Japanese running shoes compete with German brands like Adidas and Puma? It wasn't just homework. It was a hypothesis, what he later called his crazy idea. There was no business plan, no investors, no supply chain, just one man, a pair of spikes, and the belief that better shoes could change how people moved. Knight took a leap that most would call naive. He booked a flight to Japan with borrowed money. There, he met executives at Onitsuka Tiger and convinced them, with no actual company yet, that he represented a legitimate American distributor. On a handshake deal, Onitsuka agreed to send him samples. And so, with $50 to his name and a partnership letter that was more promise than proof, Knight returned home and founded Blue Ribbon Sports in 1964. Knight's greatest decision wasn't in Japan. It was back in Oregon. He teamed up with Bill Bowerman, his former running coach at the University of Oregon, a man known for literally taking apart shoes to rebuild them for fractions of a second of speed. Bowerman became the product genius, Knight the hustler and strategist. Together, they began selling shoes out of car trunks at local track meets. Bowerman's innovation was simple but radical. Make running shoes lighter, faster, more comfortable. It wasn't marketing fluff. It was functional superiority born from obsession. At the same time, Knight developed a psychological strategy that few marketers understood: a mix of authenticity, exclusivity, and narrative. He didn't just sell shoes. He sold the idea that you too could chase something greater than yourself. That would become Nike's lifelong marketing philosophy. We're not a shoe company. We're a company that inspires human potential. By 1971, the partnership with Onitsuka was failing. Blue Ribbon Sports had loyal customers but needed its own identity. So, Knight took another gamble: launch a new brand. He paid a Portland State student, Carolyn Davidson, $35 to design what would become one of the most recognizable symbols in the world: the swoosh. But here's what most people don't realize. The swoosh wasn't about design, it was about motion. Knight wanted a symbol that visually expressed forward movement, not prestige. He wasn't trying to imitate Adidas's European heritage or Puma's celebrity coolness. Instead, he rooted Nike in the aesthetics of momentum, effort, and drive. Even the name Nike, taken from the Greek goddess of victory, encoded a mindset that every runner could taste triumph through persistence. This was behavioral branding, anchoring customers' identities to motion and victory. It wasn't just a logo, it was a psychological mirror for aspiration. Knight wasn't a natural marketer. He was an introverted CPA. But his genius was seeing what others ignored. That brand emotion beats product description every time. Instead of shouting, "Buy this shoe," Nike positioned itself around belief. Early ads didn't brag, they challenged. They spoke to athletes and the athlete within everyone. Nike's first slogan wasn't, "Just do it." It was, "There is no finish line." A quiet revolution wrapped in 6 words. It rejected perfection in favor of progress. This mindset built community long before social media. Customers bought Nike not for status, but for identity. Affirmation proof they belonged to a tribe of strivers, dreamers, and finish line chasers. By the late 70 seconds and early 80 seconds, Nike wasn't just making shoes, it was engineering culture. Phil Knight understood that true growth doesn't start with distribution, it starts with belief systems. He deliberately blurred the line between sport and life. Nike clothing appeared on athletes, students, musicians, and weekend joggers alike. Owning Nike became shorthand for I'm chasing something. Years later, that insight birthed iconic collaborations, emotional advertising, and one of the most powerful slogans in history, "Just do it." That phrase distilled Nike's ethos: take action before you're ready. He wanted you to feel the same tension he did as a young dreamer risking everything for an idea. So, what exactly was the genius strategy no one talks about? It's what modern marketers would call identity resonance branding. Nike didn't market to people, he marketed as them. He built Nike not by pushing products, but by inviting customers to see themselves inside the story. Rather than claiming perfection, Nike celebrated the struggle, the messy, sweaty, deeply human process of trying. That psychological framework taps into what social scientists call self-expansion theory. People are drawn to brands that extend who they want to become. And so Nike's secret weapon became emotional contagion. By aligning brand voice with personal aspiration, they didn't need to persuade customers. Customers persuaded themselves. Every Nike commercial, from Air Jordan's swagger to Serena Williams' power, reinforces that self-identity loop. If they did it, maybe I can too. That's the hidden lever Phil Knight pulled, turning marketing into meaning. Behind the global empire lies Knight's continual balancing act between fear and faith. For decades, Nike skirted bankruptcy. Shipments delayed, debts mounting, supply heartbreaks, but each crisis reinforced his unusual leadership style: autonomy through trust. He hired obsessives, not bureaucrats, people who believed in the mission even more than the numbers. As Knight famously wrote later, "The art of competing is the art of forgetting limits." That's what Nike institutionalized, a culture of relentless offense, even in defense. From a $50 investment to a $1 trillion brand ecosystem, Phil Knight's journey redefined what marketing can be. Not manipulation, but mobilization. He mastered the emotional economy, the ability to turn human desire into a shared narrative. Today, we think of Nike as technology, style, and sport. But at its heart, it's storytelling. Every swoosh stitched on fabric is a symbol of human motion, both literal and psychological. The company's true product isn't sneakers, it's momentum. Phil Knight didn't set out to dominate markets. He set out to chase a dream faster than he could run. And that's the real secret. Build something that moves people, not just markets. $50 became Nike, not through luck, but through the relentless pursuit of purpose, patience, and possibility. Because once you learn to turn belief into motion, you're no longer just selling shoes. You're shaping the way the world runs.